What's good with the YouTube? It's your boy Brent Jamal. Today we got a super important topic to discuss. We're talking about how to stop being broke. So this is pretty simple stuff. I'm gonna break it down nice and easy for you guys, but I know this is something that some of y'all are struggling with. This is something that I personally struggled with in the past. It sort of felt like, no matter how much money I was making, I was still broke at the end of the month. And this is not a situation that you want to be in. If you're in this situation, if you watch this video to the end and you implement the tips and tricks that I'm going to give you, you will never have to deal with this situation again in your life as long as you adhere to the principles that I'm going to give you here. All right, so without further ado, let's get straight into the topic. The first thing we need to do is we need to evaluate the root of the problem. Why are you broke in the first place? So this is usually caused by one of two problems. Number one, you don't make enough money. Or number two, you spend too much money. Or three, a combination or imbalance of those two factors. Essentially, you've got yourself into a situation where you've got either a non-existent or negative cash flow. And here's how you're gonna fix this. Step one, you need to evaluate how much money you can make every month consistently without fail. Everybody makes money a different way. Some people make tips, some people work seasonally, some people make salary. It's all different. You need to figure out how much money you can make every month regardless of what's going on. So let me give you an example. Myself, I'm a hospitality specialist, so I work in restaurants. This means that a large portion of my income comes from tips. So my monthly income has the tendency to be variable. It will change depending on what's going on. So for instance, I may make $5,000 one month. Another month, I may make $8,000. Another month, I may make $10,000. It varies. So if I were in your shoes, I would try to pick the least profitable month out of the year and use that as a baseline for my budget that I'm going to create later down the line. I would maybe choose a budget that would be $5,000. Why? Because I know that without fail, I can bring in $5,000 every month consistently, regardless of what's going on. Does that make sense? You don't want to do an average because an average will mean that there are some months that are higher and some months that are lower that will create that average. And if you're creating a budget, you want to be able to adhere to it regardless of what's going on. For example, let's say I took an average of my income and I made, let's say, $7,000 or $8,000 a month on average. That's cool. But if I set my budget to $7,000, but I may end up making $5,000 in this particular month, that means that there's $2,000 worth of budgeted expenses that I don't have the income to cover. So you want to choose the maximum amount of income that you know that you can bring in consistently, again, without fail, regardless of what's going on. I hope that makes sense. Step two, we're going to evaluate our expenses, and this is how we're going to do it. So if you have a bank account, you're going to use your debit card. You're going to pour all of your income for the month into that bank account, and you're going to only make purchases and transactions, pay for your bills. All your expenditures are going to come from this one card. This is why. At the end of the month, at the end of the next 30-day period that you're doing this for, you want to be able to see very clearly, listed out, where all your money is going, every single penny. You want to be able to itemize and categorize all your expenses. You're gonna wanna be able to see how much money is going to exactly what. Does that make sense? All right, so boom. Now that you've got this done, you figured out how much money you can reliably make every single month, and you see how much money you are actually spending. So let's say you're in a hypothetical situation where you can make $5,000 a month. And let's say at the end of the 30-day period, you look at your itemized expenditure list and you see that, I spent $5,000 this month. This means that you, at the end of the month, have a $0 cash flow. You've spent every penny that you worked hard to earn. And this is why you're broke, obviously. But this is how we're going to fix it. We're moving on to step three. This is where we're going to optimize both sides of the equation here. So let's take the income side first. Let's say you know that you can make $5,000 a month reliably at your job. And now what you're going to want to do is try to find any extra time, any extra areas in your life where you can make a little bit extra money. Now, this could be maybe you're overdue for a raise at work and you go talk to your boss so you can get a bigger paycheck. Maybe you pick up more shifts or you work more hours. Maybe if you have the time, you go and you pick up a second job. Maybe you start a side gig. Maybe you start Ubering after work some nights a week. Maybe you go DoorDash for a couple hours on the weekends. It's a bunch of things that you can do to make more money. The point is not to explore all the options for side hustles in this video. The point is Take your particular situation, take what you can do, and do everything you can to put in a little bit more time grinding. Remember, you're in this situation for a reason. The reason is probably because you overindulged on things that you really couldn't afford on a consistent basis, and now you've got yourself in a hole. That means that in order to get yourself out of this situation, you're gonna have to buckle down a little bit and push a little bit harder. Instead of coming home and watching Netflix or, going to the bar with your friends or doing whatever you do when you're done working that you have free time for, use that time as a space and vehicle for you to make more money. And it doesn't have to be a lot of money. So for a little bit goes a long way in this type of situation. So let's say from our previous hypothetical situation, you can make $5,000 at your job, your regular job. Now you start grinding a little bit harder. Maybe you pick up some extra hours or you get a side hustle. Let's say you're able to make an extra $250 a week. At the end of the month, that's an extra $1,000 that you can add to your income. This is going to help you tremendously later down the line once we get to your budget. All right, now that you found a little side hustle, you're able to make a little extra money. It may be more for some people, it may be less. We don't know your situation. Everybody's different. We're going to move on to the expenditure side. You have your list of expenditures and you have them categorized. So you can look at it and you can say, I'm spending $2,000 a month on bills. I'm spending $700 on food. Maybe I'm spending $300 on miscellaneous expenses and alcohol. Maybe I'm spending an extra $500 a month for transportation. You get the point of what I'm trying to say. You know how much you're spending on different parts of your life. This is where we're going to go in here and we're going to whittle these expenses down and we're going to remove any unnecessary expenses so that we can lower our expenses. So obviously some things are non-negotiables, like your rent or your mortgage, your water bill, your electricity. I'm not asking you to live like a hobbit, and I'm not telling you to live like a caveman. Leave those, your mandatory bills, they're mandatory for a reason, but you have other things that you can go without. Maybe you don't need that Netflix subscription right now as you are on this journey to fixing your financial situation. Maybe you don't need to go out and eat as much. Maybe you don't need to go out to the bars as much. Maybe you need to cut out your time at the mall going on shopping sprees and just spending money on clothes and apparel that you don't really need right now. Because remember, we're on a mission here. We're trying to be focused on fixing our money situation. So all this other stuff can be temporarily avoided. Peep what I'm saying. This doesn't have to be permanent. This is a temporary thing. Once we're a little later down the line and you got your financial situation a little bit more under control, sure, you can re-implement some of these things that you enjoy back into your life. But right now you need to understand that you're in a hole right now and you want to get out of this hole, and that's going to require a certain degree of sacrifice. Understand that you're going to have to make a sacrifice either way. You're either going to sacrifice the health of your financial situation by indulging on purchasing things that you don't need and doing stuff that you shouldn't be doing right now, or you can sacrifice those little fleeting needs and desires for a healthier financial situation going down the line. Does that make sense? All right, so now you're in a situation where you're able to hypothetically make an extra $1,000 a month. So you're able to make $6,000 a month now instead of $5,000. And let's say through whittling down our expenses, you've taken our expenditures from $5,000 down to $4,000. You're able to cut out $1,000 of unnecessary expenses. Now you've earned yourself an extra $2,000 in monthly positive cash flow that you can now use to start saving money. You can put it in a savings account. You can keep it in your bank account. You can start building your emergency fund. You can use it for investments. You can use it to start working on those projects that you wanted to do. There's 1,000,001 things that you can do with your money now. But the point is that you actually have money flowing now from month to month. All right, does that make sense? Step 4. This is going to be the hardest step, but also the most important. This is where we're going to create a practical budget, okay? You've taken your expenditure list and you've whittled down some of your expenses. Now it's time to take whatever money you've allotted for yourself per each category and break it down into practically executable bite-sized goals. What I mean by that is this. Let's say, for example, according to your new expenditure goals, you're only going to give yourself $600 a month for food. Now, whether that's going out to eat food or whether that's grocery store food, that doesn't really matter. I don't care. The point is that you break that $600 budget down into a daily attainable budget that you can keep yourself accountable for. For example, that $600 food budget a month means that you can only eat $20 worth of food a day, or you can't spend more than $20 on food on any given day. If you do that, you will not exceed that $600 budget, and you will, as a result, fulfill your budget goals. Does that make sense? Now, remember I said practical. You need to make sure that whatever you allot yourself is realistic. Most people cannot practically live off of a $200 food budget, especially if you're in the gym. You need to get your protein in, you got to hit your macros, you need to eat whole foods, you need to eat healthy. I understand. So make sure that whatever you're allowing yourself is practical for you, your lifestyle, your desires, and your needs. Only you know that, so you have to make that call. From here, as you go through your life for the next 30 days, you'll be able to make a checklist at the end of every day and say, okay, I only spent $15 on food today. I was allotted $20, so that's a W. Let's say I'm only supposed to spend $10 a day on alcohol. Today after work, I only went to the bar and got one beer. I only spent $7. That's a W. Let's say I didn't go to the mall. I didn't spend money on excessive stuff that I didn't need today. That's another dub. Let's say I didn't go to Starbucks randomly and just order a random Frappuccino today because I'm not supposed to. That's another dub. Do you understand what I'm saying? This way you can keep yourself accountable on a day-to-day basis. And by the end of the month, as time goes on, as you get more and more used to doing this, the time will have passed and you will have fulfilled your budget goals. So at the end of the month, now you look in your bank account and there's an extra $2,000 in there. Maybe you made more money than you expected to. So instead of that $2,000 that you planned on, maybe there's $3,000 in your bank account. $3,500, $4,000, I don't know. Maybe you stumbled a little bit along the way and you spent a little more money than you were supposed to on certain things, but you made general progress. So let's say at the end of the month, instead of that $2,000 that you wanted, maybe there's an extra $1,000 or $1,500 in there instead. That is still progress, and that is what we're working towards. Step 5, this is to review and reflect on your previous month at the end of every period. After every 30-day period of your budget, look back and try to answer these questions. How did my budget go? How did I feel? How difficult was it for me to actually stick with it? What are some things that I noticed that triggered me into spending more money than I was supposed to? What sort of situations make it harder for me to stick to my budget? These are things that you need to evaluate so that you can then better yourself for the next time around. Maybe you need to change your budget. Maybe you didn't allocate yourself enough money for certain areas of your life. Maybe you allocated yourself $600 for a food budget, but at the end of the month, you realized that even though you were trying to be frugal and trying to be good about it, you still ended up spending, $700, $800 on food. So then for the next month, I need to increase my allocation for that particular part of my budget, and maybe I take something away from somewhere else. Or maybe I'm just not giving myself enough money in general for my budget, and I need to reduce the amount that I'm trying to save and increase the amount of expenditure money that I'm going to allot myself. I hope that makes sense. So just as a quick recap, guys, step number 1, you need to evaluate how much income you can make reliably every single month. Step 2, you need to evaluate your expenses. See how much money you're spending and where every penny is going. Step 3, you need to optimize both of these factors. You need to try to increase your income as much as you can, and you need to try and decrease your expenditures by as much as you can by eliminating unnecessary expenses. Step 4, you need to create your categorized budget, and you need to break it down into bite-sized daily goals. That way you can keep yourself accountable on a daily basis, and you can make baby steps to achieving that larger monthly goal. Step 5 is to review and reflect so that you can improve and better yourself every single month and determine what you can do to make your budget even more efficient and effective. And guys, before you know it, 2, 3, 4, 6 months will go by and you'll look at your bank account and you have some commas in there. You have a little something in your bank account. Now you can go take those trips that you wanted to take. Now you can make those investments. Now you can maybe go have a little bit of fun. Maybe now you can go buy those shoes that you wanted to buy. And you can live life as a more financially free adult. And that's what we want to go towards. So guys, I hope this helps. If you like the content, please like the video. I encourage you to subscribe to the channel if you want more tips and tricks for self-improvement. And if anything was confusing or something didn't quite make sense, put it down in the comments below. I'll do my best to shed some light on the scenario and point you in the right direction. But that's all I've got for you today, guys. Y'all be blessed. Love y'all.